What's up, everybody? Philly Soccer Page post-game show. I'm Mike Servideo here with Matthew DeGeorge tonight. Rotating cast of hosts this year.
I'm the third choice, and I'm okay with it.
That's not true. Union win 2-1 behind goals from Harris Medunian and CJ Sapong after a pretty cynical first half from the Colorado Rapids. Big win for the Union tonight. Good comeback in the second half. Does this team have that comeback in them 3 weeks ago?
I tried to ask that question to start the press conference, and I was kind of rebuffed by Jim Curtin. To my answer, I think that this is a team that at times this season has gotten punched and kind of cowered. Maybe it wasn't in the first half, and they've had some times, DC and Orlando, they did respond. Not enough, but they responded. I think there's some other games against New York City and Portland where they got hit and they kind of threw up their hands and said that was it and we're going home. Today they didn't do that. They made adjustments. They played more as a team. I thought Harris Medunian was very forthcoming about the fact that in that first half they played, as he termed it, arrogant. They played like individuals, and then in the second half they played like a team, and they did play better. Obviously the calls kind of tilted in their favor. You get the penalty that was an obvious penalty, but still one that, when weird stuff happens in the box, you never know how a ref's going to view that.
Especially this referee today.
Rivero did not have the fullest grasp, I think, of what was going on. Then you have the rather bizarre Caleb Calvert double
2 yellow cards in a minute.
For, I guess, pitch invading would be the term. Technically, none of them were for time wasting. The first one was
dissent, and the second one for returning to the field.
So, kind of a weird situation. But you have to say, the Union, once they went up a man, they pressed the advantage, they get the second goal, and then Colorado had nothing after that.
Yeah.
This wasn't like Houston where it was kind of nervy late. This was, even though the lead was half of that, there really wasn't much.
Let's talk about the first half a little bit. Colorado gets an early goal, which I don't think a lot of people were expecting. I don't think Andre Blake was expecting that shot.
Thoroughly against the run of play.
And I think that that goal is in the 15th minute, and that's probably one of the most cynical performances we've seen at Talon Energy Field in a long time for a team in the first half. They were probably lucky to escape a yellow card for time wasting, and they got behind the ball and frustrated this Philadelphia Union team that really struggled to break them down.
They did, and some of that I think was going to be the game plan. Regardless, Colorado is a team under Pablo Mastroeni that last year was compact and hit on the counterattack, and they did that to the playoffs. They did it with great success. This year, not as much, as teams have kind of figured them out. But certainly after Calvert gets that goal, you're thinking to yourself, okay, they're just going to sit, and it's up to the Union to kind of break them down. I thought at halftime, I actually thought this would be a game for Adam Najem possibly to come on, because you would need an extra guy in the attacking third just to kind of shift the numbers. But the Union made some adjustments. I think they were a little bit more aggressive in that second half. I think they pushed Giuliano Wijnaldum higher a lot. Jim Curtin said he was outstanding today, and I agree. I thought Wijnaldum had a very good debut. And ultimately, it was an ugly game, and they won an ugly game. And I'm told that ugly games count in the standings the same as pretty games.
I was pretty sure there's still 3 points.
We're now looking at a team that, and I don't know how you kind of process all of this, but this is a team that went from 8 winless games, 16 in all competitions, and now they're on a franchise-long winning streak. We're 12 games in the season, and they're 4-4-4. How do we get here?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, if you would have told me we were going to be standing here with this conversation a month ago, I wouldn't have believed you. But I'm glad that we are, because it makes it a lot more fun for all of us.
It's a little bit more interesting, if nothing else.
Yeah. Jim Curtin made 2 changes to the team that won on Wednesday. I think a lot of people were wondering how that was going to go. Jim's not a guy that typically changes the team very much, especially a winning side, but he did change the back line, which he almost never does. We saw Gio Wijnaldum make his first start, and unfortunately Fabian Herbers came in for Chris Pontius and was only able to go about 25 minutes before he pulled up. It seemed like a hip flexor, I think Jim said in the presser, so that might be a bit of a layoff for him too. Were you surprised with those lineup changes, and did you expect to see more?
No, I think I expected a change at the back. I just wasn't sure that it was going to be Wijnaldum in for Fabinho. You could have seen, I personally thought this would have been a day to get either Rosenberry back in there. He went with an attack-minded fullback on the other side, so at least I think that was kind of the same wavelength. You see Oguchi Onyewu go 90 minutes 3 times in 8 days. which is pretty impressive considering where he's been. But
look okay doing it too, right?
Looked pretty good. Yeah. And I don't think he was going to change CJ Sapong. I didn't think he was going to change either the central midfielders, so that kind of left it up to the wingers.
Yeah.
And so he makes one change on the wing, and it's unfortunate for Herbers. We talked to him in the locker room, and he's still a little unsure what it was. He said it might be a sports hernia, which if it's a sports hernia, that's going to be something that does require surgery.
Yeah.
Probably, when Michael Lahoud had that a few years ago, that was 2 or 3 months out. So that could be kind of a long thing. I think he's struggling with trying to figure out what it is. So that's unfortunate. But that is a position where they have a lot of depth. If Roland Alberg comes back, you still have Olsinho on the wing, which means Picault is, possibly on the bench. You still have Marcus Epps out there. You have some options out there. So it's not a great situation, but if you're going to have an injury, that's kind of the position to have an injury, as bad as that sounds.
I've mentioned this a couple of times on Twitter, and I want to get your thoughts on the right back position right now. Ray Gaddis has started the last 4 in a row after Keegan Rosenberry had a rough start to the season. Going back to last year, though, Keegan plays every minute of the campaign in his rookie year. He's an all-star at right back. He's called into national team camp in January, and now he's seemingly lost out to Ray Gaddis, a 5-year veteran who's kind of been in and out of the lineup. Where do you see that right back position going? I mean, is Keegan have to win it back? What's going on?
It's kind of fitting that we have this conversation the day that Eric Miller's in town, and Eric Miller has gone through that exact same issue, only in 2 or 3 different towns now. A guy who actually was capped by the national team, and then, finds it so difficult to get into various teams when he was in Montreal, and I think he was somewhere else before he landed in Colorado. It's a weird situation. To my sensibility, I would think that the Union maybe have the ability to play kind of home versus away. On a day that you're going to be facing a team that is going to bunker in and you need good crossing ability, that's kind of the day to bring in Rosenberry.
Yeah.
Gaddis is more of your, I think this was toyed around with a little bit last year. Your road fullback, your guy that you're going to match up against, maybe a really fast, old school, get to the byline type winger like, Kyoto the other day, or had Alberth at least played for Houston. But Jim doesn't view things that way. So that kind of gets a little muddied. I think he's very much a hot hand guy, which has its logical kind of underpinnings, because that means that in order for Keegan Rosenberry to get back into the team, Ray Gaddis has to fail. And in order for Ray Gaddis to fail, that probably means they have to drop points somewhere. So it's a little bit of a tough road. I think Curtin has established a good dynamic with these guys and an understanding within the team about fighting for your place and fighting for your minutes. So I don't think Keegan Rosenberry is going to not bring it in practice or not still push. They also have Open Cup games coming up, so that throws a wrench into all this, which gets a chance for guys to prove themselves on the field. So I think it'll be kind of an interesting situation. He still thinks of Keegan Rosenberry as the right back of the future. So it's not maybe a bad thing to have 2 viable options there. And now with Wijnaldum and Fabinho, 2 viable options on the left, and Fabinho's the guy that's played, I would hazard to guess, since the beginning of 2016, he's probably played the most minutes now that Keegan Rosenberry's hit the bench. And Marquez has hit the bench.
One last question before you go. We had Jay Simpson come on today and put in a pretty good performance. I think he was involved in the build-up of the penalty. He forces a really good save from Tim Howard with a fantastic turn and run in the 90th minute. We haven't seen a lot of Jay Simpson. They haven't had a chance to bring him in, and he's kind of struggled in that lone striker role. What do you see for the future for him? Is this going to be the role for him? Or
see, again, I would have said this would have been a very good game to get Simpson out there. Get Sapong a rest. I still think Jim Curtin needs to be a little wary about CJ Sapong and overworking him, because he, whatever he's going to say about it, he didn't manage that properly last year. CJ got overworked, and as a result, the results fell. I think it's possible that's the silver lining in the Herbers injury, is that maybe more you're going to see CJ Sapong played out on a wing. And it's not necessarily something that I think is the best for Sapong. I don't know that it's, particularly now that he's playing some of the best soccer of his career, to put him back at that position. I don't know if that's going to harken back to when Sporting KC did that a few years ago, and I think that's damaged his confidence in a way that it took years to really recover from. I think Jay Simpson is a viable option to play on the wing. When you look at his skill set, he's fast, he's not very big, he's kind of like he's like a muscled up Fafa Picault. And there's no problem with Pico being on the wings, so I don't know why there's a problem with Simpson being on the wings. He needs to learn the defensive reads and stuff like that, but to me, that would be the natural position. I don't know that Jim Curtin sees it that way.
Yeah.
And if Jim Curtin doesn't see it that way, then all of a sudden it's going to be, do you start CJ? Do you start Jay Simpson? And Jim Curtin for the last 3 years has almost unanimously picked Sapong over whoever his other options have been. So I think that's another position of, it's going to be difficult for Simpson to crack the lineup again, and he's getting paid a lot to sit on the bench.
Yep. All right, I think we'll wrap up there. Union win 2-1 against Colorado Rapids. Visiting Real Salt Lake next week. I think we're not back here until the June 18th, unless there's an Open Cup game here before then.
And we can pack it in for an Open Cup game.
We do love the Open Cup.
It's Reading or Harrisburg.
Reading or Harrisburg. Yep.
Get your tickets now.
Yep. We'll see you then.